Hello. All right. What we're going to do this time is a little different. We're going to take a piece that's already been rendered and basically we're going to deconstruct it so you can see how the file was put together, and we'll talk about why we did some of the things that we did. Try to make it fast just to see if this is the kind of thing that anybody finds interesting out there. So let's get started. This is a cartoon bust that I finished recently for a show in El Paso. Pretty cool. Gonna get rid of my color wheel there because I don't need that right now. Basically, you can see this is a full render here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off a bunch of these layers because I want to take you back to how this all started. So I'm going to turn off all of those guys. Turn off all of those, all of these guys. We're just going to go back to our sketch on a white background here. And you know what? Why don't I make my palette thumbnails a little bit larger? There. Alright, so this is just a basic pencil sketch. You know, it's a little rough because I was going to come through here and do some inking and everything. So in order to make the inking happen, I'll show you real quick. And then we'll grab a brush to ink with. There's one that I have right here that I actually like. Size 50, 100, 100. Let's move this size down to, yeah, something like that. What is that, about 20? And basically between using this brush and the pen tool, I can come along here and ink this piece. This new smoothing thing that's in Photoshop CC now is pretty good too. I'm going to put a little bit of that on there. That's cool. So I'm just going to come along here. It's pressure sensitive as well, so I'll get some nice tapering and so on and so forth. I like to do the contour lines first, then I go around and I will do the interior lines after that. I'm not going to re-ink this whole thing because it's already done. I will show you using the pen tool though how I will also sometimes come along here for some shapes that I don't want to ink by hand. I will use the pen tool and I will create a path like so, and then I will actually, what I'll do is I will right button click, I will stroke the path, I will set my brush, I'll tell it to simulate pressure, and I'll let it go ahead and do that. Or I have a set of actions that I've already created that do that for me. So in this case, I might just hit Shift F6, and there you go. Photoshop has stroked that path for me. I don't often keep all of those. So let me delete that path. There you go. So basically that's the inking process. You know, I'm kind of glossing over it a little bit, but for the most part, that's what you do. You zoom in here and you get your lug nuts and you get your door handles and all of that stuff just using your brush. And when you're done, your inking will look something like this. There's some tones and stuff going on there for some other things that I was doing earlier, but basically for the most part it's black and white line art. You're good to go. And I do keep on the blue line layer so I can still see where I'm going to lay in tones and stuff, but there's your basic inking. Let's take our blue line. I'm going to double click it, or no, you know what I'm going to do? Control U, hue, saturation, click the colorize button, slide the color in the blue range, increase the saturation. There you go, that's okay, because sometimes that's fun to see as you're going along and doing the rendering. Then what I do after I create this line art layer, I have several layers that get created to help with the rendering. I use the line art layer with the magic wand tool like so, to select areas. Let's do this bottom one here. Okay, and let's say that's the area that we have, that's an area that we have selected there that was going to be the bottom of this bus, and this bus was going to be a red color down there. So after I've selected what my color is, I have my selection there. I can do a edit fill or alt backspace. Alt backspace. I'm going to deselect that. I'm going to name this layer body base or bottom body base if it's a two-tone bus like this one is. I'm going to create a new layer above it, which is, I can click the new layer button. I have a shortcut that I set up for that though. In between that body base layer and the new layer I just created, I'm going to hold down the Alt key and kind of click the little line right in between them. And it makes that little drop down arrow there. I'm going to click that because that turns the layer above body base layer into a clipping mask. Then I can come back over here and select a darker red color. And initially when I start doing these, I like to use the gradient tool set to radial gradient, and the opacity is set to 33. That works out really good for me. And then I will start using the gradient tool along the bottom of this bus first. This is just to lightly give me some volume to the piece. If I have my blue line layer above it, I can see what's going on there. I'm going to select a not quite as dark shade of red. I'm going to click my brush tool. I'm going to grab just a standard airbrush, but I'm going to put the opacity down, I don't know, 15. That sounds good. Decent sized brush here, and come in here along what I call like my little horizon line. I might just lightly brush in some darks in that area, brush in some darks in this area. And what's pretty neat about this is you can see I'm painting with this color, but out here, you know, it's only going to show up where, oh, I need to be on the right layer, but out here, it's only going to show up where I have red painted before. See, I can brush all the way over here and nothing is showing up because it's part of the clipping mask. That's what the clipping mask does. I will change colors and show you again. So with the clipping mask, you can come in here and you can brush like this, and it automatically keeps you inside the lines, which is great. And you can always, you can turn it off. You can always go back to your original shape, your original selection, or any of those other things that you want to do. So let me come in here and, oh, let's click our red color again, and let's click a lighter tone red with our brush on our clipping mask layer. And I will come in here and brush in some light tones. And so that's how you set up the rendering layers that are all underneath your drawing line art layer. So let me delete those, and I will turn on the bottom body base one that I did before. And here's the tones for that layer after they're all brushed in and everything, which is great. I like that a lot. I will turn on the base for the top of the bus, which was, it's a black bus, so I went with a, I don't know, kind of a darker gray, 60% gray, 70% gray. And then on its clipping mask right above it, that's where I brushed in the tones for that. Let's go down to the trim, this piece of body trim that's going down the side of it. This is the trim base color, which is kind of just a really light gray. Maybe has a little bit of blue in it, but it's light. And then there's a bevel that's on the top and the bottom of that. Also for the trim though, there is another piece that lays in over the top, and that's in this folder called Upper Deck, and I'll show you that you know, when we get to it. I will do the tire base. I make the tires just once again, a grayish base color. And on their clipping mask, this is, I just airbrush in the tones. Let me zoom in here a little bit so that you can see. So you can see some of the tonal work that's going on there. One of the things that I do is, as I'm working through a file, I'll start to get, a number of layers. I will right button click on a layer, and right here I will assign a color to it. I normally always make my line art layer red, and then layers that are underneath it, I just kind of, every once in a while I'll throw a color on one, because when you're scrolling through the whole list, it sometimes helps you see the color or the layer that you want to select a little bit better than having to try to read the name. This one right here, I will zoom in here for this. And actually, why don't we turn off our blue line, because we don't really need it for the purposes of this. We're just deconstructing or reconstructing a deconstructed file. Here's my rim base. This is my rim tones. Just airbrushed in some blues and stuff. This is the rag top base right here. Here's the tones I airbrushed on that. And you can see as we go along, it's pretty much the same thing. There's chrome, all the stuff that's chrome on there with its tones. The base colors for the lights. Here's the coloring and stuff that I did on the inside of the lights. There's an upper layer for that. There's the lim ball base colors. Here's all the blacks in the design. Once again, I was just use the magic wand on the line art layer. Since I have those lines already defined, I can just hold down shift and click in here and here, wherever it's going to be black. And then down here, fill that in black. This is another interesting layer right here. This is my silhouette layer. I'm going to change my background color here for this. On my silhouette layer, what I do is I make a selection of the entire bus, like so. Just the outside stuff, everything that's around it. Then I will do a Control Shift I, which is invert selection. And then down here on a silhouette layer, I will fill a color in there. Normally it's white or it's a very, very light gray, but I'll fill in this color so that you can see. What this allows me to do, or the reason why I have that, is because when I turn off the background and I'm going to move this vehicle fully rendered over into its design, the silhouette creates a backing for all the colors and everything that are above it, and helps maintain the depth of the piece when you move it over. That way, if there's any little gaps or anything, you don't have to worry about it. So we'll turn on our silhouette layer. These are the extras, like that's the steering wheel. Oh, the glass. So as I was doing the line art for this piece, for example, how do I say this? Okay, so as I was doing the line art for this, when I started to do these windows, for example, this glass over here, I stopped and I took a minute to take that selection that I had that was going to be for glass color later on, and I went over to channels and I created a channel mask for the actual glass, and you can see this one right here. The reason that I do it while I'm inking is because the glass is still going to cover these hinges and these other things that are in there. If you wait until after to try to make that a selection instead of creating your glass mask at the easier point, and you're going to regret it, because then you got to zoom all the way in here and you got to click around this wing nut and do all this other stuff just to make a glass shape. I mean, I suppose you could pen tool it back around there if you wanted to, but even then, that's kind of a pain. So here's my openings for my side glass. These are the ones that I had created for the split windows on the front. I actually did make one for the trim. And then this one right here, it's hard to see because of the colors and stuff that are on here. Let me turn this off. See all this white area. This is just the side pieces of the bus on the red side on the bottom without the bumpers, because sometimes I just want to work specifically on just that area. It's a good way to give you detail. So let me see here. What else do we got here? This one right here. This is our underneath the fenders and everything. I like to keep that on a separate layer and brush in different tones outside of the body because it helps to add depth. And once again, I'll just use my magic wand, click in there, or think I'll click in there, and to select that area that is just the wheelbase just underneath there, so I can shade that in, which is great. Oh, what else do we got here? It's almost looking pretty full. I think we're almost done. It's a little inner shade piece right there. This is the tire tread. Notice on the tire tread, what I do is I'll create the black tire tread. I'll duplicate it on another layer right above it by doing something like this. So this is my tire tread layer right here. If I do a Control J, that makes an exact copy of it above it. I will lock transparency on that layer. I will then fill that layer white. So now my tread is white. I will move that layer below my black layer, and then I will nudge it down using the move tool, like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, down and over, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then lower the opacity of that white layer just a little bit, and there you go, you got some tread. So that worked out good. Then with the blue line, this is what I call the upper deck. There's a number of layers in here. The wheel well shadows, the light overlay, like that's the colors and tones and stuff that are on the lights. The inner trim piece, because there's a piece that falls right in this channel right there. This is where I build all of these things. Here's the glass, and I'll just turn it on so you can see. Here's all those pieces, and here's the glass. Now all of the glass is rendered on one layer. Well, what's great about it is I can, if I wanted to change that, I could click on this glass layer, since I have that separate, and do a Control U, which is adjust hue saturation. I can take this little slider right here on the top, and look now I got purple glass. Come back over here, I got green, I got orange. Just by sliding this slider right here, I can adjust the saturation of it. You know, anything that I want to do there, I can just modify and just change those colors. And that's another reason that we try to keep a lot of this stuff on separate layers and do a lot of clipping masks and stuff. For example, I could click on the base layer that is the bottom base of this bus right here, and up here, if I wanted to, let me create a new layer, and I'm gonna do, why don't we do a blue color. I'm gonna fill this on that layer with the blue. Now if I just change the layer properties on this layer to color, now I got a blue bus instead of a red bus. And that's one of the advantages to building this stuff this way. If I could lock this layer or lock the transparency on it and continue to fill colors on there, or I could also do a Control U, hue saturation on this color changer layer now. And now anywhere that I slide this, you know, there's an orange bus. You know, some of these, that's kind of an interesting color. Anyhow, it just keeps your file really flexible and allows you to do a lot of things. So that is the upper deck. What do I have right here? These are my hot spots. I like to add some little circular hot spots and some little bling things, kind of like a Charlie paw print guy. It's a little ode to him. Here's my bling brushes that I got from Jerry Clow. I use those on all my pieces, and there's my Jerry shape right there. I always have a Jerry shape in every piece because she's the one that taught me how to do this. And then of course here's my signature. One of the other things that I have here at the top, this is an adjustment layer, and I'll show you how those work real quick. Down here at the bottom of the layers palette, there's this little half circle looking guy. You click on that, and that's for adjustment layers. And let's do a hue saturation one, where on the entire piece I can now adjust the saturation of the entire piece just by sliding this slider. And this is actually pretty powerful. It gives you a lot of flexibility with what you're working with. You can really punch certain colors up, take others out, and it's not something that you have to go back through and recolor everything with. I like to do a hue saturation one, and sometimes I like to add a levels adjustment as well, a levels adjustment layer, so I can take this slider and push my darks in. Look at that, that's great. And maybe I'll push a high side in here a little bit. And the middle one is the one that gives you all the row range. It's actually applying this and adjusting everything that's below it from the top of the file down. Over here, as I am going through and using paths, sometimes I will save them if I want to use them again, or continue to make selections with them as I'm working on a piece. For example, I can select this outer tire right here. I would do a F3 or a that's not going to work unless you have my action. So it's a right button click. Let me show you how to do that. So I'm going to select on this path, a right button click, and make selection. It gives me these options here, so it made that a selection. Now I'm going to click on this ellipse right here. I'm going to right button click on that, and I can do a make selection with that, or any number of other things. So in this case, I want to subtract it from the current selection. So it's going to subtract itself from this one out there, and that leaves me with the selection that is now just the outer part of the tire. And I can go in there and I can airbrush on my tire layer clipping mask right here. See, if that wasn't there, I could actually do that right here or on a new layer. So anyhow, let me see, what else do we have in here. Here's some more paths. Sometimes I'll add those if I want to do some, just some little things here and there, just to add a little emphasis and punch. But basically, that is the construction / deconstruction, reconstruction of one of my cartoon files. There's likely to be a lot more detail in some of the tutorials and stuff that are coming up. Hope you enjoyed this one. Please subscribe. We'll do some more. If you have any questions, you can ask. I'll answer. Other than that, I think we're good. Thanks a lot. Bye.